When a young woman told Selena Gomez she was too ashamed to speak about her mental illness, something powerful happened. Jimmy Fallon watched as one of music's biggest stars transform stigma into strength right before their eyes. It was a magical Wednesday evening at Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center, where The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon was pulsing with that unique energy that made millions of viewers feel like they were witnessing something truly special. The studio was bathed in warm, golden lighting that created Jimmy's signature intimate atmosphere, with nearly 200 audience members filling every seat with anticipation. Behind his curved wooden desk, Jimmy sat with his infectious smile, while the Roots provided their seamless musical backdrop that made every exchange feel both personal and momentous. Across from him, in the guest chair that had welcomed everyone from breakthrough artists to global superstars, sat Selena Gomez. At 33, she possessed a presence that was both magnetic and deeply authentic, the kind of genuine warmth that had endeared her to fans around the world. Tonight, she wore a perfectly fitted burgundy blazer that complemented her warm complexion, her dark hair styled in soft waves. There was something about her demeanor that radiated both vulnerability and strength, the unique quality that had made her not just an entertainment icon, but a powerful voice for change. The interview had been flowing beautifully, with that easy rhythm that comes when two people genuinely connect over meaningful topics. They'd covered Selena's latest projects, including her critically acclaimed performance in Only Murders in the Building, her successful rare beauty empire, and her upcoming music releases. But the conversation had gradually shifted towards something deeper, her mental health advocacy and the Rare Impact Fund that had become such a central part of her mission. "It's incredible what you've built with the Rare Impact Fund," Jimmy said, leaning forward with genuine admiration. Over $16 million raised for mental health resources in just a few years. That's not just business success, that's changing lives. Where does that passion come from? Selena's expression became more thoughtful, her trademark warmth deepening into something more profound. "You know, Jimmy, I think when you've walked through the darkness yourself, you understand how desperately people need to know they're not alone in it. Mental health, it's still this thing people whisper about, like it's something to be ashamed of, but it shouldn't be." "You've been incredibly open about your own journey," Jimmy observed, his host instincts sensing there was important territory to explore here. "Your documentary, My Mind and Me, was so raw and honest. That couldn't have been easy to share with the world." "It was terrifying," Selena admitted, her voice carrying the weight of that vulnerability. "There were moments during filming where I wanted to quit, where I thought, I can't let people see me like this. But then I realized that maybe that's exactly why I needed to share it, because somewhere out there, someone else is going through the same thing, feeling the same shame, thinking they're broken or alone." The audience was hanging on every word, sensing that they were witnessing something more authentic than typical celebrity conversation. This felt real, urgent, like a glimpse into the heart of someone who had transformed their pain into purpose. "The stigma around mental health is still so strong," Jimmy said. "Even with all the progress we've made, people still feel like they have to hide their struggles." "Exactly," Selena nodded, her passion becoming more evident. "And that isolation makes everything worse. When you're dealing with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, when you feel like you can't tell anyone because they'll think you're weak or crazy or attention-seeking, that silence becomes its own kind of prison. That's when the voice from the audience cut through the conversation, like a lifeline thrown to someone who desperately needed to hear exactly these words. "Selena?" The voice was young, trembling, but carried a courage that immediately caught both Selena and Jimmy's attention. There was something in that simple address that suggested this wasn't just a fan wanting to share admiration. This was someone reaching out for something deeper, more vital. "I'm sorry to interrupt," the voice continued, gaining strength with each word. "But what you just said, I really need to ask you something I've never said out loud before." The camera swung toward the source, and there she was, a young woman who couldn't have been more than 25, wearing a simple navy sweater and jeans. She had shoulder-length brown hair and eyes that held a complexity that spoke of battles fought in silence. There was something about her posture, the way she sat with her hands clasped tightly, that suggested she was carrying a weight that had become almost unbearable. "What's your name?" Jimmy asked gently, his professional warmth creating space for whatever needed to be shared. "Maya," the young woman replied, her voice steady despite the obvious emotion beneath it. "Maya Rodriguez. I'm 24 and I have something I need to say." Selena was studying Maya intently, something in the young woman's demeanor clearly resonating with her in ways that went beyond simple audience interaction. There was recognition in Selena's eyes, the kind that comes from seeing your own pain reflected in someone else's struggle. "What did you want to ask, Maya?" Selena said softly, her voice stripped of any celebrity polish, speaking human to human. Maya took a deep breath, gathering courage for words that had probably been building inside her for months, maybe years. "I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 2 years ago, and I haven't told anyone, not my family, not my friends, not even my boyfriend. I see you talking about mental health so openly, and I admire it so much, but I can't. I'm too ashamed, too scared. How do you find the courage to speak about something so personal when you know people will judge you for it?" The studio fell completely silent. This wasn't just an audience question anymore. This was one soul reaching across the void to another, asking for guidance on how to carry a burden that felt too heavy to bear alone, too dangerous to share. 2 years, Selena repeated quietly, understanding immediately flooding her features. 2 years of carrying that alone. Maya nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Every day I wake up and put on this mask, pretend everything is fine, but inside, it's like I'm living 2 different lives, the one everyone sees, and the real one where I'm struggling just to get through each day." Selena stood up slowly from her chair, and the movement seemed to happen with deliberate purpose. She didn't ask permission from Jimmy or glance at the producers. She simply walked around the desk, past the cameras, and into the audience, drawn by an invisible thread that connected her to this young woman who was voicing a fear that Selena herself had once lived with. Behind her, Jimmy quietly stepped back, understanding instinctively that this moment belonged to something larger than entertainment, larger than late-night television, larger than anything that could be scripted or planned. Selena reached Maya's row, and audience members naturally shifted to make space, sensing they were witnessing something sacred. She stopped directly in front of Maya, this global icon looking into the eyes of a young woman who was carrying the same shame and fear that had once threatened to consume Selena herself. "Maya," Selena said, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying clearly through the silent studio. "Can I sit with you for a minute?" Maya nodded, unable to speak. Selena carefully settled into the seat next to Maya, somehow making herself smaller so she could meet this struggling young woman exactly where she was. "Maya, I want to tell you something that I hope will help you feel less alone," Selena began, her voice growing stronger as she shared this piece of her story. "When I was first diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I didn't tell anyone for almost a year. Not my mom, not my best friends, not my team. I was terrified that if people knew, they would see me differently, that they would think I was unstable, unreliable, broken. The audience was completely still, hanging on every word of this revelation that felt simultaneously intimate and universal. I kept thinking, if I just pretend hard enough, maybe it will go away. Maybe if I don't acknowledge it, it's not really happening," Selena continued, looking directly into Maya's eyes. "But pretending didn't make it go away. It just made me feel more isolated, more ashamed, more like I was living a lie." Maya was crying quietly now, but they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of finally feeling understood by someone who had walked the exact same path. "What changed?" Maya whispered. "I had what I now know was a psychotic episode," Selena said, her voice becoming more passionate as she shared this deeply personal memory. "It was 2018, and I completely lost touch with reality for a while. I ended up in a treatment facility, and for the first time, I was surrounded by people who understood what I was going through, who didn't look at me like I was broken, but like I was someone who deserved help and healing. Behind them, Jimmy was watching with his own eyes bright with emotion, understanding that he was witnessing something extraordinary. The moment when one person's vulnerability became another person's roadmap to healing. "Maya," Selena continued, reaching into her purse and pulling out something small and worn. "I want to show you something. This is a note I wrote to myself when I was in treatment. I carried it with me for years." She unfolded a small piece of paper and showed it to Maya. It says, "My mental illness is part of my story, not my whole story. I am more than my diagnosis, and I deserve love and support just as I am." Selena refolded the note and placed it gently in Maya's hands. I want you to have this. Not because it's magic, but because I want you to remember that having bipolar disorder doesn't make you less worthy of love, acceptance, or success. It makes you someone who experiences life in a different way, and that's not something to be ashamed of. Maya was sobbing now, clutching the note like a lifeline. But what if they judge me? Maya asked. What if they treat me differently? Some people might, Selena said honestly. And you know what? Those people aren't your people. The people who truly love you will want to understand and support you. And Maya, there are so many people out there who are going through the same thing you are, feeling just as alone and scared. When you find the courage to speak your truth, you're not just healing yourself, you're giving others permission to heal too. Jimmy approached them then, his own voice thick with emotion. Maya, Selena's absolutely right, and I think there are probably other people in this audience tonight who needed to hear this conversation too. Actually, Selena said, turning to Jimmy with sudden determination, I want to do something. Maya, you said you've been carrying this alone for 2 years. What if I told you that there are resources available right now? Therapists who specialize in bipolar disorder, support groups where you can connect with other people who understand, treatment options that can help you manage your symptoms, and live the full, beautiful life you deserve. I don't know how to find those things, Maya said quietly, and I don't know if I can afford them. That's exactly why I started the Rare Impact Fund, Selena smiled. Maya, I want to personally connect you with mental health resources in your area. Not just information, actual support, actual treatment, actual people who will walk with you on this journey, because that's what the fund is for, to make sure that no one has to face mental health challenges alone. The audience erupted in applause, but through it all, Maya's voice could be heard. Thank you for making me feel like I'm not broken. Thank you, Selena replied, for reminding me why this work matters so much. As they embraced, Jimmy stepped forward to address the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Sometimes the most important conversations happen when we stop pretending everything is okay and start admitting that it's okay not to be okay. The episode that aired became one of the most powerful Tonight Show segments in history, generating millions of views and messages from viewers sharing their own mental health stories. More importantly, it sparked real conversations about bipolar disorder and removing stigma from mental health discussions. 3 months later, Maya Rodriguez stood in a support group meeting in Phoenix, sharing her story with 8 other people learning to live openly with bipolar disorder. In her wallet, she carried Selena's note, but also something more valuable, the knowledge that her mental illness was part of her story, not her whole story. When Maya posted about her mental health journey for the first time, the first comment was from Selena Gomez. So proud of you for choosing healing over hiding. You're an inspiration to everyone who needed to see that courage looks like this. Because sometimes the most powerful thing about breaking your silence isn't just that it sets you free. It's that it gives others permission to break theirs too, and creates a world where no one has to carry their pain alone.